All right, folks. Definitely a very interesting morning, and we'll be talking about what's going on in the world. And very shortly, we will be joined by Steve Rao, and who knows who else might be appearing also. But I know he's had a meeting, and he's going to take care of that meeting that he's got to do over here with one of our PBS affiliates. So we're going to see how that all goes and what he's talking about when he comes in here and checks in with us. But in the meantime, a number of things are happening around the world and all of that. So wanted to share some of the news stories that I'm hearing about and hear what y'all have got to say about them as well, because there are a number of things that are happening in our society. And of course, we do know that this is Pride Month, so some of them may even be revolving around pride and all of that. So we definitely want to do our part to see what's going on in that society and what's going on in the world. As a matter of fact, there was an article earlier that was talking about nearly a quarter of the LGBTQ plus professionals in the US had that part of their lives at work. And that was according to a new LinkedIn survey. For those employees, it could mean foregoing pictures of loved ones on their desk or avoiding conversations about weekend plans. The survey suggests having to hide their authentic selves could have other consequences too. People who were open about being LGBTQ plus said it helped them connect with others and build better professional relationships. They also felt like a weight had been lifted from their shoulders. So definitely that's something that we're seeing a number of folks are probably having to deal with and all of that. So, definitely I am a big fan of people being authentic and true and all of that. So definitely I can understand the fears that folks may have when they're going into a job force, and some folks may even be trying to do things that are against them and attacking them, and definitely they may not want to put themselves in the line of that fire. So I can definitely understand why people may be doing what they were saying in this article. As a matter of fact, there was a further commentary from a attorney that was in the article that I was reading, and that young attorney Sarah Nakachi was saying that as part of the LGBTQ plus community, she had always been loud, proud, and advocating for her community. She worked on legislative and political campaigns, but she knew she wanted to do more, so she decided to go to law school. And in January, she graduated magna cum laude, took the February bar exam, and was admitted to the Florida bar in April. So she was saying that it was great having folks in her corner and all of that. And she's been searching for the perfect job since that time. And she did say that she hates to admit it, but it did cross her mind that her work history might be off-putting to potential employees. But then she just recently got a job as part of at the beginning of Pride Month. Uh, and she was saying that earlier this week, at the beginning of Pride Month, had her reminding herself why it's so important to be proud of who she is and the work that she's done, because there are others with power who are working against equality. As a matter of fact, she was actually pointing out the fact that Florida passed an anti-transgender law, the first explicitly anti-LGBTQ plus law in the state in more than a decade. So definitely we don't need to be hearing that from that community down there in Florida. But we do know that Florida can be sometimes one of the more conservative states and all of that, even though I do have friends that are in Florida and even some business colleagues down there. So I do have some admiration for Florida as well. So that's just some of the news items that I was seeing in that sense. And of course, there's a number of other news items as well. So definitely keep all of that in mind as I wait for some of my other folks to show up and all of that. So, one of the other things that we know is that a lot of times people, particularly as we get into the summer months, are thinking about their career journey and all of that. So too often in careers and in life, the goals become the object of focus and fascination to the detriment of the journey that's shaping you as a worker and as a person. So definitely, we're seeing that was another article that I saw, and folks were definitely being looked at to what was going on in that sense, trying to figure out how they were going to deal with their careers and all of that. So that's some of the things that I was seeing, and I do see that some of my buddies have popped in as well. And I'm going to bring up this one other article that I saw, and then we'll go into a conversation with Sasha Starr as well as Nick, our big boss, and everything who just popped in as well. So definitely a lot of things are going on, and glad to be part of that. But I just saw that the airlines are saying, adios to booze. So I'm wondering what Nick has got to say about that. And when I bring him in, I'll ask him about that too. But they're saying that travel is picking up around the world, and unfortunately, so too are reports of unruly behavior in the skies. Things have gotten so bad that American Airlines, United, and Southwest are curbing alcohol on their flights. The service updates are in part due to a Southwest passenger who was caught on video last week punching a flight attendant who ended up losing two teeth in the incident. The international president of the Association of Flight Attendants said, "We have just never seen anything like this." So Southwest did not specify when it would reoffer alcohol, and American, while offering alcohol in first and business classes, will not offer it in the main cabin until September 13th, when the federal mask mandate is lifted. United will only serve beer, wine, and hard seltzer on some flights over 800 miles for the foreseeable future. So definitely looks like folks are acting unruly during this time, and that's why some of these airlines are actually cutting back and definitely not letting folks have the drinks that they used to be having and all of that. So you're going to bring in Nick, and of course I'll bring in Sasha as well, and we'll have a great conversation just about Nick and Sasha, a great meeting that deals with this network, and hopefully we'll have some big news to announce on that front in the not too distant future and everything, but definitely impressive presentation and all of that. But what did you think about this whole concept of, and Steve told me he'll be coming in late. He's actually had a meeting as well that was separate from ours, but definitely I was wondering what you thought about this whole concept of alcohol being kind of curtailed on our flights. I know that you're a big flyer, a big man of travel and all of that. And definitely it looks like some of the airlines have had some unruly behaviors. And you know how it was back in school. Once one person acts bad, then several people sometimes have to be punished. But I was wondering what your thoughts, and I know you probably heard about this story that took place last week and how it's impacted folks and all of that.
Yeah, I did see the story, but the strongest drink I drink is sitting in here. It's a Diet Coke. So because I don't drink, it's not an issue. Now, it may be an issue with Sasha coming from Russia where that vodka.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. It's a
big issue, by the way.
Big issue. No vodka, no fly. I mean, so the thing is, he may have a bigger stake in this game than I do, but I have no dog in this hunt. There he goes. He's got his vodka. He's got his vodka. So
this is what I need.
Yeah, for the Ruskies, that may be a different story, and frankly, for other people, it may be a story. That behavior with or without alcohol is uncalled for by that particular individual, and should be spending some time in the big house with stuff like that. I mean, that's it. You know, I'd escort her off the plane, put her in the tank for a while, and let her cool off for a while. I saw that, and I was going like, "Are you kidding me?" But you know, Mark, here's what I have, because I fly a lot, and unfortunately, there's some airlines that are off my list because of the nature of some of the people that are not frequent flyers, and you can tell, usually because of this, something goes wrong, like the airplane needs a part, and they go, well, "I'll never fly that airplane again." And, you know, or something's uncomfortable for them. They never fly that airplane again. Okay. And I know these people. They go for the cheapest flight out there. So they are going to fly that airplane again because that's a cheap airline. So the thing is, it's a complete, it's just it's a people thing. And unfortunately, every now and then you get disgusting people that happen to go on airlines. But like I said, that person will be spending some time in the big house for that one. You don't, come on, Mark, you don't punch an airline pilot or excuse me, a stewardess. Yeah. Are you kidding me? What sort of moronic thinking is that? In other words, and that person wasn't like a kid that didn't know what they were doing. That was a full-grown adult. But, you know, we've seen things in the news here, at least in the United States. I'll tell you what, if this was a foreign country and I was traveling here, I would not go to the U.S. I would not go here because this is a very dangerous place to live. You know, look at our statistics. The murder rate, you had 2 kids age, 12 and 14, sitting in a house shooting at policemen. You know, now at first I thought the parents should be at fault because they should lock down the guns. But then I found out what they did is they broke into a house and took the guns and started shooting. Okay, now they have to arrest the 14, and the 12-year-old is right now up for attempted murder. How'd you like to be 12 years old and have a attempted murder as your charge? And so the thing is, that shows like what was wrong with our parents, and frankly, what was wrong with the kids? Are the kids that far gone that they do stuff like that at age 12 and age 14? When you look at this, and this goes back to our gun culture that exists here,
Right.
which, by the way, does not exist in Canada.
Mm.
They don't have a gun culture. We do, and I've been on record, repeal the Second Amendment. Oh, we can't do that. I need my guns. No, okay. Listen, here's the deal. The Second Amendment needs to go. And the reason why is that we can't have individual jurisdictions take care of guns. They don't have this problem in Canada. They don't have the problem in UK. And frankly, they took all the guns in Australia away from
Wow.
those mates. All right. And that's the wave of the 21st century. Otherwise, you get these yahoos. And I've been around guns all my life, Mark. And here, when I was a little kid, we had semi-automatic 45s, semi-automatic 22s. I had an arsenal of this stuff. But then I realized what happened when I had visitors coming out of our lake place. They didn't know how to use it. They all thought they did. But they really get gun safety in their brains just never connected. And we got rid of all of them. I mean, over a period of time. I love shooting. There's a place for that. They're called these. You go to these gun places and you shoot. Gun ranges, yeah, and you shoot, and that's cool. But like we were out shooting in a lake place that we could actually have, when it started developing a lot of people, we could have killed people, But back then we couldn't because there was no one around. But today you can't do that because you can't just you can't take a 45 semi-automatic and go, God. You just can't do that today. So the best thing to do, get rid of the Second Amendment, pick up those guns from these people that think they know how to hold guns and they don't, and get rid of it. Get rid of them.
Does that mean do we also have to get rid of the axe places as well? Because we have a place that you can throw axes here in Durham, so it's actually like an axe tossing place, kind of like you toss darts.
No, because guns in of itself are basically weapons of mass destruction. We have too many of them out there. The thing is, the automatics, the semi-automatics that people have, easily obtainable. Walmart advertises all the time, so do all these Dunhams. You go to all these places, go buy a semi-automatic. Let me tell you, semi-automatics should not be in the hands of people that have no clue what they're doing, and 99.9%, not everybody, 99.9% of the population have no clue what they're doing.
Nick, I would like to ask a question.
Go ahead, Sasha.
Is it true that the reason why the Second Amendment was part of the Constitution does not longer exist as of today?
It doesn't. It really doesn't exist, Sasha. You see, the thing is, it's this brainwashing idea that you guys in Russia are going to come over here and invade the United States, and we're going to have our guns to protect ourselves. I mean, this is really stupid 16th, 17th century thinking. Or an evil government's going to come in like Belarus, and there's no way we can get rid of the guy, and we'll have all the uprising of people with the guns to do it. It's really 16th century, 17th century, maybe even 18th century thinking, but we're not in that period anymore. So the thing is, to repeal the Second Amendment, let's say a state decides, hey, no guns. Now, also the reason you repeal it is this. They come into my place, and I literally have an arsenal of guns, okay? Right. And the police go, and I'm nuts on top of it. And the police go, nothing I can do. In other words, see, if you get rid of the Second Amendment, there is something they can do. Pick up all the bloody guns.
Get rid of those guns, get rid of that. I don't know if I ever told you this, Nick and Sasha, but I remember many years ago, it might have even been almost a decade or so ago, I went traveling to take some artists because I was actually booking artists, and I still do that on occasion now, but I was taking some artists to Ohio to do a performance. It was actually like a reggae group and everything, and we came back from Ohio, and we stopped in a convenience store, and they were having a raffle ticket and everything. Right. And do you know what the prize for that raffle ticket was?
What?
It was actually a rifle. The rifle was actually sitting up there. And I want to say, and I could be wrong, because like I said, I think I was coming from Ohio. I want to say that it was actually in Steve's neighborhood. I want to say it was in West Virginia that we stopped at. And I just remember thinking to myself, did not have the full beard, and it definitely wasn't gray at the time and everything, but I did have some beard. And I definitely remember traveling with these reggae guys. So as their, manager / booking agent, I told them, get over what you're getting. We're getting the heck out of Dodge really fast because I'm not really liking this vibe here, because they're raffling off a sawed-off shotgun. So I
Yeah, yeah.
don't know.
Well, yeah. What they do is they made the accessibility too easy, and the thing is, you have to make it extremely difficult because people are irresponsible. Period. The end. And the only way you can get rid of it, they did it in Canada, they did it in Australia. Go look at the gun murder rate in Canada, Australia. It's like a joke. Same with the UK, and everybody will go to a knife. Let me tell you something. A lot tougher to wield a knife on somebody. You could do it, but a lot more difficult than a semi-automatic 45. Semi-automatic 45. You don't have to. It's too easy. In other words, you're making crime, violent crime, too easy. Best thing to do is get rid of it. And then people, well, then I'm going to protect my guns that I have already. I'm not going to let people. I'm put it in a safe deposit box. Well, fine. Then you lock it down because you're scared to death that they'll be confiscated. You see the chilling effect? And then those two little kids will never break into your house and get the guns because you've locked it down because you're scared to death the government's going to go take your bloody guns. So, and the best way to do it is get rid of the stupid Second Amendment. And so with that part, some people think I'm more left than left, but I don't really give a rat's rear anymore. I really think that that's a bad law. A repeal of the Second Amendment would be a good thing, and then let jurisdictions decide. Because in Texas, they may say, "Oh, open carry and everybody have guns." Fine, but in Florida, may go, "Nope, we're going to take them," and all states will have the right to say enough is enough, and we're just going to confiscate your guns. Which is, you can't do that today because somebody jumps up and says Second Amendment.
And you know why nobody is doing that?
What?
Because they are all scared that as a result of that, they will lose elections, and not just
I know
but
that.
several.
Right. Yeah, right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, Sasha, so it's so ingrained in our culture. In 300 years from now, people look back on this and say, "How can people be so stupid?" Seriously, 300 years from now, it will be gone. The Second Amendment will be gone, and your guns will be gone.
Nikki,
it's going to take 300 bloody years. What?
A person who never had a gun in his life, doesn't have a license, absolutely has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
And he will be against striking down the Second Amendment. Why? Because he will say, it's my freedom. I know I don't have a gun and probably never will have a gun, but I have a right to have the gun. So that right is taken away from me.
That's correct.
I am against it.
Too bad.
That's what you're fighting.
Yeah, I know that, but too bad. But the thing is, like I said, during that time, years ago, I had 357s. The shells were this big. The 45 was only this big, but it had a 20-round clip. It was only a semi-automatic. Do you know, I used to go out and cut trees down with these things. It was that much fun to shoot. You can't do that anymore because our population is too big. A stray bullet could come kill somebody literally out of those things. So yeah, they're fun machines. I'm not going to say that anything wrong, but you just got to get rid of this stupid Second Amendment and start getting rid of people's guns. When you go in inner city Chicago, Mark, where there's a lot of murders that are not reported, a lot of it's black on black crime. They just don't bother to report it. But the thing is, the police are impotent. They go, "Oh, there's an arsenal. Nothing we can do. There's the Second Amendment. So guys, when you do your shootout tonight, just let me know. We'll send the body bags out." And that's the U.S. today, man. Instead, you get rid of the Second Amendment. They go, a lot of guns here. Kiss those goodbye. Go find more money to buy them. Get rid of it.
No, I hear you. And I was reading a acquaintance of mine's blog, and it was actually out of your home state, and he was actually saying that once again the careless and reckless nature of gun owners is making headlines because this guy runs a thing called Caffeinated Politics. But he was talking about how recently 2 children in Florida ran away from a group home, broke into a house that the owner was not in at the time, and stole a gun and ammunition. The homeowner said the home was stocked with an AK-47, a handgun, shotgun, and a large amount of ammunition.
Yeah.
Why do you need a AK-47 in your house? So just explain that to me. And the 12-year-old boy that broke into the house said he told investigators he grabbed the AK-47 and 2 loaded magazines for the AK-47 from a case in the bedroom. The boy said he fired multiple rounds at police officers from the AK-47 had to reload the second magazine according to the charging affidavit. So, like I
Yeah.
said, I mean,
Well, they're basically dangerous. I mean, Mark, I even had one of my first cousins who loved to go out shooting. Okay, he went out shooting with his friend, who was actually the sheriff's son, and blew the guy's head off.
wow.
Okay, now what happened? Well, he's cleaning the gun. Okay, and this guy's used to be around guns because they used to go hunting. Cleaning the gun, didn't know it was loaded, and blew the guy's head off. I mean, and stuff like that happens a lot in this country, more than people even think, and that's not reported because hey, it's just a statistic. Chop it off on the thing, and what happens is part of the problem is, hey, there's just too many guns out there. One way to eliminate is start getting rid of it. And yeah, there might be some more crime committed. Well, it used to be when people went to bars, Mark, they were what they call bar fights. People get their fists out, they have too much alcohol and they fight, right? But usually people usually didn't get killed off of bar fights. Today, they all draw their Glocks and shoot each other. I mean, come on.
It's just insane.
It's
What's the
insane.
gun situation like there in Canada, Sasha? Are we seeing as many gun incidents, or have y'all actually been like the smart brothers over there to the north of us and not doing as much of the craziness?
No, I'm not aware of any gun violence in Canada lately, or even not so lately. And people, I don't know, somehow the bar fights are not very popular in Canada. I don't know, because maybe Canadians are lazy, just too lazy to do into bar fight, or they're scared maybe to get beaten for nothing. Um, yeah, I might say that. No, in Canada is not the place for bar fights or any fights at all. People are very polite, law-abiding, most of them at least. Um, and However, I have an issue with what we discussed earlier about alcohol in flights. There are a couple of things that would really bother me because I do have quite a few drinks during the flight, and in spite of the fact I'm flying in business class or first class, business class most of the times. But then there is a kind of unfairness. So in business class, we are served drinks for free. Well, it's a part of the fee that we paid for to fly in the first place. But the people in economy class, they're not going to get their customary drinks. So that's kind of like make people who are flying in business class a higher class citizens than those flying in economy class, or they're second class citizens, because whatever is available free of charge in the business class will not be available even if they are willing to pay for that. It's not going to be available to people in economy class. Maybe they're nice people, maybe they're good citizens, mother, fathers, maybe even sometimes professors of law school, and yet they will be deprived on the very basic right to acquire a drink and have it. Some people are actually scared flying, and having a drink is the only thing how they can fight their fear of flying.
Right.
So they will be deprived now. I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Well, see that's one of the problems is one person does something bad and everybody gets punished
Right.
for that one particular result, which that part I don't agree to. But the thing is that one person does need to spend a lot of time in the big house for that one.
Absolutely.
That was totally uncalled for, with or without the alcohol.
And it's kind of like that thing that happens in society. Unfortunately, there's a lot of times that things are, I guess, what we described as knee-jerk reaction. So, like I said, I agree with you that one bad apple shouldn't have ruined it for other folks that were doing it correctly. I mean, particularly, one person, and we've got so many flying on a regular basis. That's a very minute percentage of the bad behavior. Even if there were 6 or 7 incidences, that's still not the majority of folks that are flying. So it does seem that sometimes when these things happen, we have a tendency to have those knee-jerk reactions and all of that. So that was I would agree with you that it shouldn't be trying to punish everybody. But one of the things that I've seen in the New York Times, and I'd love to hear both of y'all's comments on this, is apparently we added 559,000 jobs last month. In the month of May, created more jobs in March and April than earlier estimates suggested. But apparently, even though there have been jobs added, folks are saying that the economy is not growing as fast as it possibly could, and that it's not so much of a hot back summer as a warm back summer. So they're thinking that it actually could be a slow recovery and all of that. So, a lot of people, they see these numbers of new jobs and all of that, and they get excited, and they're glad that there are new jobs being created. I know that sometimes these jobs are, people that were not just unemployed coming back to work, but they might be going back to work and being underemployed. So that might be part of what's going on. But both of you are involved in that economic space. So what are your thoughts about the fact that the economists are not overly excited, despite the fact that that's almost a little bit more than 500,000 people that actually got placed back in the workforce? But definitely, it sounds like the economists are still saying, slow your roll, be a little bit cautious, because it may not be as fast of a recovery as y'all think it will be.
Well, the thing is, I think the economy will recover. I'm not sure if I'm going to recover what FireEye did to me yesterday. I don't know if Sasha watched that.
I watched, yes, I did.
Watched it. I watched it. I was
Yes, I
going,
do.
hey, great guys, take off 15% of your value by selling your best asset off, and I was going like, remember I told you there's this black swan out there, information that we can't get, the CEO does something and all of a sudden FireEye goes down 14%. I'm like, God, forget
But
it.
you see, Nick, my problem with this, that obviously the deal was already in preparation for some time. So
Sure.
it wasn't something happened that, oh, wow, it's like if it's a nuclear attack and you couldn't foresee it,
Right.
yeah, that could be excuse. But there was no nuclear attack lately. And I'm wondering, when you're looking at the chart of FireEye, the chart is very convincing. Actually, it's moving up slowly but surely, and the volume is there and so on. So this is, in fact, the most obvious example of how people are being separated from their money.
Right.
The easiest way to do it is when you have a picture. Sometimes the people call it painting the tape technique. So they're painting the tape. It goes up, so people are convinced it's the right industry, it's the right pattern developing, and so on and so on. That's getting, and then it drops down as there's no, how should I say it? No prisoners are taken. It's going down as a straight line. There is no exit points of any kind. There is nothing. So in fact, when everything is settled and done, people are losing tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
From that point on, it will take years to get to that level where people get in, say $22, $23 or so. It will take years. Now we are low. We are into grind. They will slowly go higher, maybe half a point, then lower quarter of a point, then another quarter of a point higher, and it will take until all people who got involved at $22, $23 or higher, they all have to get the white flag, sell it all, take all their losses, and they have a technique, electronic technique, to follow almost up to the very person who bought the stock in the last 2-3 months or whatever. So they're following all of them, and until all of them will give up, sell the stock, take their losses, then and only then stock will start to go higher.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, see, the real point is that obviously Wall Street did not like that move. Okay, let's just get real. The money managers didn't like the move, and if you think about it, selling off assets for cash is bad, because what's the worst performing asset you can have right now? Cash, right, Sasha? No,
yeah, but they're going to buy back their own stock for.
I saw that. They're going to stock buy.
Okay, that's that maybe okay. It has merit.
Yeah.
I just don't understand what was the purpose of selling it for
I,
cash.
I don't know. I looked at the move, and I sort of I agree with the analyst, but sometimes I got in because I wanted to be in cybersecurity, and the first thing they do is sell off their cybersecurity asset. I'm going like,
So what they have left now with?
they have a servicing, like the guy said, a high growth, low margin business and servicing. Servicing software. I mean, and that's been by the way, that's been a key trend in the tech industry is servicing software as opposed to developing software. Don't ask.
Maybe they will be acquired by somebody. That's
I don't know. I just shrugged my shoulders. I went through this with BlackBerry, and the sad part is what I didn't know with BlackBerry. I should have just kept it. They rebound, and it may be a year. Some cases it was even less. But if you keep it usually for a year, you go back to where you were. You didn't lose anything. But at the same time, I'm going. That was my momentum stock, Sasha, and the momentum went the other way. As where everything else is dividends, and dividends. If it was a dividend, I wouldn't even care. Because the dividends keep coming in no matter what the stock price is.
Nick, you remember what I said in last financial program on Wednesday? I said that it cannot be a core stock by any means, simply because it's a momentum stock, as you said, and it doesn't pay dividends. So what is the reason to hold this stock? So it's momentum. It's like
momentum. That's the only reason.
It's a day trading stock. You buy it at 22 and sell it at 22 and a quarter. That's the end of the story. There's nothing on to linger.
Yeah.
But your motivation.
How about buy at 22 and sell at 18?
Yeah. But you see, you are you sort of idealist, man. You're saying that you want to be in cybersecurity, and therefore you acquired the stock. So it wasn't really a day trading purpose.
No, it wasn't a day trading. And I have a longer horizon with it anyway. In other words, I wasn't going to get rid of it for another year anyway. But I was like everybody else. I was disappointed in the move made by management, except my disappointment isn't reflected like what other managers do. They just withdraw their cash and watch the stock sink.
But you know what? I'll tell you. I have a person, I know him very well, and what he does, he trades, and his strategy is he's buying something, whatever he likes. He rides it for 3/4, even half of a point, and sells.
Right.
And I'm asking, what's happened if it goes slightly against you? Let's see, it's losing half of a point instead of making half a point. He says, then I'm becoming long-term investor.
Oh, is that what's going on? Okay.
Oh, that's what it is.
So now, Nick, welcome
to good. With FireEye, I'm now a long-term investor.
Yes. Okay.
I went
wrong with that, by the way. A lot of people are making.
I hear you, and I see our good friend Steve is coming in, so I'm going to bring him in and see what he's got to talk about. But I got a quick question to ask you, Nick, while I'm going to bring him in. I was actually, as y'all was talking, thinking about something that's legally oriented and coming out of New York, but apparently, some of our kids are doing hard crimes at a much younger age, so they're thinking about changing some of the laws. So they were talking about actually somebody that was near the Canadian border that was charged with a sexual violence, a sexual assault type of crime and everything. Don't have to say what type it was and all of that here on our network, but definitely he was charged with a very harsh case, and he was only 7 years old. And then there was also a 9-year-old girl in Rochester. So apparently New York is looking at the minimum age at which a children may be charged as a juvenile delinquent in family court, ranging that to 12 from 7, except for homicide offenses, and divert cases involving younger children to social and other services. And apparently there's also a push to raise the age at which teenagers can be charged as adults from misdemeanors and most felonies from 16 to 18 years old. So if the kids are acting bad and doing some very dislikable things in society, do you think they should be charged as adults, or should they even be arresting them? Should they even be arrested at all of that? Because definitely, this 7-year-old, I just go ahead and say what he's accused of. He's accused of rape. So I was just wondering, do these folks should be prosecuted at such a young age? With
our prosecution system doesn't even work, Mark. I mean, in all due reality, our prison system and our prosecution system is archaic. The thing is, what we need is we need rehabilitation, and you need counselors for these people, because a lot of it is they come from these environments that are very challenged, and unfortunately, all we think of is, you did something wrong, let me punish you. You did something right, let me reward you. In other words, we're very, very Stone Age about it, where in reality, what they need is, unfortunately, a lot of counseling, coaching, and good leadership. And the thing is, with kids, there's a lot of kids that they just don't get it. I mean, they're basically thrown into situations and swim for themselves. And we don't do a good job in our education system. We don't do good. Some of them have mental health issues. We don't do a good job with mental health in this country. We're horrible. And so the thing is, all those systems, and part of it is, Mark, is that people that have mental issues have a hard time defending themselves because of the mental issues, if that makes any sense. In other words, like if you were hurt in the Vietnam War and you had a broken arm or you lost an arm, you can still defend yourself mentally. But if you had PTSD and you're messed up, you can't defend yourself mentally. And so what happens, our system tends to run people over as opposed to try to help people. So when our system adjusts to serving people as opposed to punishing people, then we will have a better system. Like even in my own community, I sit on our board, they send out all these notices, violation, da da da. Look, that's not what we should do. We should try to help these people as to, and it's stupid stuff. You left your garbage can out. Oh boy, that's a huge one. Seriously, is that the biggest problem you have? But the thing is, we should find out what the problem is and try to solve the problem, as opposed to, let's take the hammer and hit everybody with a hammer if they get out of line. Why don't we just do that? If a kid gets out of line, take a hammer, just whack them on the head with a hammer. That's what I'm saying. How primitive our systems are.
Nick, let me please explain something. Let's say you left a can somewhere in a public place, right?
Right.
The public place must have a maintenance people who are really taking care of the place, and they will pick up the can or so on.
Right.
So now you will, by punishing me for leaving the can, so now, in fact, you're going to leave maintenance crew without work, so that they don't have to pick up the can, but they're being paid, and most likely with my own money through taxes, etc. So I would leave the can on purpose to make them to pick it up, because that's why they're there. That's why they are being paid.
You're helping them out.
What kind of nonsense is that?
You're leaving the can there, helping out. But
Hey, Steve, what you got going on today?
We missed your monologue, Steve.
Yeah, well, I'm doing the monologue at the end, but I'm sorry. I'm actually at PBS Carolina offices. Actually, they had a technical difficulty, and it took us 45 minutes to get live on the CV set. So,
who's the head of PBS Carolina today? I remember there's Soroka. Is he still there?
I'm an analyst here now, and so I'm here with Deb Knoll from Black Issues Forum. But and so it was just a nightmare. So thank you,
since you sit on the city council of Morrisville, I'm sure you hear a lot of the day-to-day grind that exists at the city level, from roads to all sorts of things that take place there, which a lot of people don't realize, that like the mayor or the councilman, you spend 95% of your time dealing with, I call it grind work, picking up the garbage. Would that be correct? Picking up the garbage and making sure the roads are working.
Well, I think, I mean, the basic services that are closest to the people. So, fire and police, which is run by cities, in transportation infrastructure, which is, we get the blame in Morrisville for the roads, but most of those roads are state roads.
Right.
Traffic. Schools, we get the blame for a lot of overcrowded schools, but that's not really our issue either, because in North Carolina, it's funded by the county commissioners and the school board. But the issues that are closest to home. So when someone gets up in the morning and they see traffic, or somebody gets up in the morning and they see overcrowded schools, the first person they're going to call is Steve Rao, and they're going to complain. They go, "It's
your fault,
Steve.
Awful.
It's your fault." But I do a lot of big picture stuff too. I think cities sometimes I lead our smart city initiatives. I lead our economic development initiatives. I work on recruiting companies to our city. So you can you can play the game the way you want. And sometimes, I think we get too in the weeds. And today, I'm going to close out today talking about immigration reform, because there's some really breaking news legislation on the United States Congress floor. But today I was talking about,
immigration reform. Tell us about that, because we've done Guidry, one of our attorneys on Lawyers Den, is an immigration attorney. We've done some specials
Okay.
on that. So
We'll
that's
talk about it
certainly
now. I love this. This is like prompt two, so I'm going to change my
right.
closing monologue. I don't even know what I'm going to say, but I love that.
That's all right. You can roll
Right.
I
with it and
love it.
talk to us about immigration because
You guys
actually
Yes.
I'm curious.
you're training me for prime time, so one day I can be
Yeah.
up there with Chris.
That's
Cuomo.
by the way, that's exactly what this is all about.
Okay,
But go on.
training. Come on,
This
Chris.
is
I'm coming.
training,
I'm coming.
baby.
I'm coming. I'm
Right.
You're
coming.
coming for him. You're coming for him.
Watch out, Don Lemon. Here I come.
Right.
And Sasha Starr, it's great to see you as well as always. So the bill on the floor of the U.S. Congress, and I'll be talking about it this afternoon to our community, is called the EAGLE Act. It's called the Equal Access to Green Cards for Legal Employment, and it's been sponsored by Zoe Lofgren, a Democrat from California, and John Curtis. And basically what it does is it's basically reducing the wait times for people who are applying for green cards, like in China, India, the Philippines, by eliminating the caps for employment-based visas, which is what we've talked about. So
Right.
raising the family visa cap from 7% to 15%. And this would impact a lot of the STEM graduates here in North Carolina or universities here that are working in the technology fields. And, it's amazing because in the U.S., the Indian American community produces about $50 billion of income. And if in North Carolina, if you accelerate the path to citizenship, they would add about 800 million to our GDP. About 32% of our STEM graduates are foreign-born, most from Asia, and 60% of our PhDs are foreign-born, mostly from Asia. And this is true for the Chinese, the Filipinos. So this is pretty interesting. But once again, these things get off the House floor, and they got to go to the Senate. And the problem with immigration is that it's not, the skilled immigration is the easier part. And Sasha Starr lives in Canada, and I'll close out with, Justin, their prime minister. They have signs in Silicon Valley that say, if you can't get your work permit, come to Canada.
So, we need to compete for that talent. See, I'm more an open borders guy. In other words, if you got a person who A, has money, they should be welcome here. B, if they have special skills like highly educated, they should be welcome here. Or 3, they're a super hard worker, they should be welcome here in the United States. And we have this closed border mentality, which is just killing us because the U.S. grew greatest in the 1800s when we had basically an open border mentality. And they brought a lot of people in the 1800s. The immigration flowed from the 1800s to early 1900s. Our greatest GDP growth in America took place in that period of time. And then we reverted back to this, well, we're not going to let anybody in and all this other stuff, which really doesn't work. So I'm glad to see that they will do that because there are some really bright people around the world that we need to actually work hard to get them here. Because frankly, if I was a bright guy in a foreign country, United States would not be number one on my list today. It's too much crime, to be honest with you. I'd go to Australia, New Zealand.
If you're listening to the show and you're living in the U.S., email your congressman, both Republican and Democrat, and your U.S. senators that you want skill-based reform.
Skill-based reform, absolutely.
And hey, if an entrepreneur wants to go to Canada, that's fine, but we'd like them here.
Right. But I've actually got a question for everybody, and it's based on a news show that I saw on one of our local networks. It wasn't our network, unfortunately, but and what they were raising was the fact that here in North Carolina, Apple is coming, and this person is involved in housing reform and all of that was actually finding that a lot of houses in certain neighborhoods, and some of these neighborhoods used to be urban neighborhoods, are being bought up because of Apple coming, the prices are going up and all of that. So definitely that is impacting a number of folks. So I was wondering y'all's thoughts on this.
I'm hearing a lot about, I want to take the first shot at this because this is a big issue where we live in North Carolina. And for Sasha, this is educational. Maybe this is going on in Canada. We call it affordable housing, workforce housing, right? And it's a big issue today, having housing for your firemen, your police, your staff, your teachers, and the younger generation that actually doesn't mind living in an apartment rather than having to go buy a home, right? But the affordable housing has really been impacted by this. One of my colleagues, Satish Garamella, who sits on the council, thinks that our town should actually go buy land now for some of the things we want to do because the Apple announcement is just going to drive up the prices. And the mayor of Austin advised North Carolina officials that they need to be looking at affordable housing, and that Austin did that. When Apple came to Austin, they built a big campus there. They made a lot of investments in affordable housing. But if this doesn't happen, what could happen is housing prices could go up, land prices could skyrocket, let alone, the economic development officials in North Carolina asked for $112 million to go into education and community funding and another $100 million to go into transportation. Right now, we have no idea how that money is going to be divvied up, but it just goes to show. But I think affordable housing is also a component of that. So, Mark, it's a very important issue. And watch those house prices, Nick, where you're living.
I've already have. Mine has kind of skyrocketed in my community where I sit on the board. We have 450 houses, which are basically townhomes. Of them, if you want to buy into my community, none are for sale today. They're all sold out. And here's what they start. These townhouses now start around 500,000 going up. And I'm going for a townhouse? It's ridiculously expensive here, but we're close to Research Triangle Park in the Briar Creek area. And RTP, they're starting off these tech people with jobs. The average job in Apple, the average starting salary is about 200 grand. Okay, well, some kid starts making $200,000, they can spend what they want on housing, and then they start bidding up the homes around the area, and that's what we're seeing. And so what happens is that for the average worker who makes 40,000 or 60,000, they can't compete. In San Francisco, you're right. Either you had to buy in early, okay, and you own your home in San Francisco early, but if you're moving there because of a job, you can't afford a house in San Francisco. In Seattle, where I was from, the average house is like 800,000. These aren't mansions; these are like little matchbox homes with no garages, and they're 800 grand. And see the real problem with the tech sector. This is the problem with the affluence that exist, is that all of a sudden the prices go crazy. And so with Morrisville, I think they're right. With bringing all these good companies into North Carolina is wonderful, but it's going to drive up the land and real estate prices. The average policeman, fireman are going to go, how can I go $500,000 for a house? I mean, how are they going to afford it? It's ridiculous.
I think,
absolutely.
remedy for all that is development of so-called trailer parks communities.
Well,
they're much more affordable, and they're quite comfortable.
They did that in Florida. Florida has over 1 million mobile homes. Florida, and I've been to a lot of those mobile home communities. You'd think they're bad. They're not. I mean, they're beautiful mobile homes with golf courses and communities and stuff like that. But see, they can do the same thing here with these modular homes that they build, and they're doing it right now in the Briar Creek area, where they're like townhomes and apartments, and they just build huge amounts of them, and then they can make them affordable. They can make them affordable. Here's the problem, Sasha. The developer. It goes back to the greedy capitalist, right? So there's this last neighborhood, the cottages are going up. Well, why should they drop the price? Their building costs are maybe $150,000, seriously. But they know they can get $500,000 for it because people are desperate for housing. So they start them at $500,000, Sasha, because the builder, okay, the capitalistic builder greedy. Okay, if you can get $500,000 for your $150,000 investment, why wouldn't you do that? You follow what I mean? So they're following that supply-demand curve, making huge amounts of profits here, rather than saying, okay, I'm here to do affordable housing. They're not here to do affordable housing. They're here to do
is the law of supply and demand.
The law of supply and demand.
You just can't beat it.
Yeah,
it's impossible. So every lousy trailer and every lousy place where people can exist, they will all go eventually in price to $500,000, maybe $1 million each.
Yeah. So, well, then it goes all the way back. Sasha, then it goes all the way back to education, all the way back when you're in grammar school. You should have taken those engineering classes as opposed to those political science classes and got your degree in technology. Doesn't matter, wireless, know how to operate radios, it doesn't matter. Then going into political science, because those jobs on technology, they pay unbelievable amounts of money. And so,
and then finding the skills. And I don't know whether there's an affordable housing issue in Canada, whether this is, but and now they're changing the name to workforce housing. So, But
Because wasn't there a movement at one point, and I don't know, I think it's still going on. I remember it was very popular in like right before the pandemic, where folks were looking at trying to create those what used to be called tiny houses and all of that. So they were like much smaller.
Tiny houses. Yeah,
Right.
they're pretty efficient. But anytime you're dealing with a house, you're dealing with land, and when you're dealing with land, it's the land cost that's the real problem. There's only so much land. So the tiny houses only occupy one place. If you do a condominium or a cluster homes, you can build like lots of homes like they do here. They'll have apartments that are 3 to 5 stories tall, and you can put a lot more people in than a tiny house. A tiny house is a luxury, really, because you're using one of the most valuable resources, land.
So I think Sasha's got a question he wants to bring up.
I want to tell you something about tiny houses.
No, I want to hear about the tiny houses because I want to hear what Sasha's got to say about tiny houses. Because I was going to add that one of the other stories I saw yesterday was about this guy who's unfortunately passed away, but he lived in the beaches of North Carolina, and he was actually called the Fort Fisher Hermit because he actually lived in a very small enclosure, and apparently his former place is now a tourist attraction, even though he's nowhere near there. So people are literally going there to look at a hut that was there.
Yeah, and they called them granny huts in Raleigh.
Right.
I remember, and I think a couple council members got voted off because they wanted to make a bunch of granny huts, or granny houses, and it's just how.
What was your thought, Sasha?
Wait a sec. I wanted to say something about small houses. People really don't understand what small really means. Many years ago, I had a stopover in Paris, and my flight was next morning. So I wanted to get someplace in the hotel right at the airport to stay. Everything was occupied except one hotel, which called Cocoon. I remember the name. It's a Japanese chain. And so there's nothing else available. So I took that. So I came to the hotel in my room, opened the room, and I could step in. And I did that. But you cannot make any step farther up or down or left or right, anywhere. You can only stay there. On the left is a bed, so you can, from where you stay, you crawl right into the bed. Or from where you stay, you can open a toilet door, so you can go to toilet and shower. You had all amenities, a very, very
there you go.
place, except you couldn't make even one step in any direction.
I've heard about those. They exist in airports.
Small. Yeah. That's what it is.
Okay, I found a solution to affordable housing for Steve. Okay, you know the corner of 7th Avenue and 112th Street? Here you go. You give him one of these. Tell him to lay down on the cement floor.
Oh,
get
man.
one of these things, put it over you, and there you got your housing. You got your housing.
That was very cold-blooded.
Is your best friend Mitch McConnell?
This is the Mitch McConnell housing.
Mitch McConnell housing, no doubt about it.
You're right.
Hey, Nick, just really quick, and I know that Steve's got his monologue and everything that he's going to do, but a couple of things. One that's sports related, but I was just wondering, American officials came out, I guess it was yesterday, and said that they could find no evidence that aerial phenomena witnessed by naval pilots was alien spacecraft, but they also couldn't explain it. So they said, we can't explain it, but it ain't that. So I'm sitting there going, like, if you can't explain it, how do you know what it is? Because you've already said you can't explain it.
That's the reason they're UFOs. And what happens, aliens fly by, they look at this world, they look at these people, and they go, these people are really primitive. They get back in their spaceships and they leave to go back home. They go, we're not going to have anything to do with this group. And that's probably what's going on. So that's the reason you don't see aliens here, or UFOs are here watching us, and they go, this is a hopeless cause.
They're going like, it's a hopeless cause. We can't do anything with this.
Can't do anything with these people.
For those that follow sports, and I know not everybody does it, and even not internationally and everything, one, I was glad that the Carolina Hurricanes will not get swept. I'm not saying they'll win the series, but at least they won't get swept because they did win a game yesterday. So they're down 2-1, so maybe they'll make a comeback. And also in the world of, there's this great celebrity, because he is not just a basketball player, but he's also a celebrity, LeBron James, that will not be in the NBA Finals. He got eliminated yesterday. So I loved his press conference. He said that he was not going to the Tokyo Olympics, but instead he and his Space Jam people would be competing during the summer. So he's going to get together, as he said in his conference, with a good joke. He said, I'm going to get together with Granny and Bugs, and we'll play, but we're not going to play in Tokyo.
Well, at least they won that. I'm going to close out here, Mark, but at least they won that last one for Kobe Bryant last year. And I haven't been following the NBA as much this year. But on a positive note, before I begin my closing monologue, I wanted to just say that yesterday was a big day for me. My first in-person event, maskless at RTP Box Yard. Over 300 people there.
Really, yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
It was amazing. And I tell you, I felt electrified. I stayed the whole 3 hours. I said hi to everyone in the room 4 times and came home and felt like $1 million. So we are getting back to normal. And I'll just close out real quickly with something that we might want to talk about next week. I was on PBS Carolina today talking about the $6 trillion that President Biden is proposing in his infrastructure plan towards addressing racism and inequity in America. But there's a difference in how you define infrastructure from the Democrats and the Republicans. President Biden is wanting to define it with, for example, increasing federal contracting for minority-owned businesses by 50% by the year 2026. Right now, that number is at 10%. This could create about $100 billion of income. $213 billion for affordable housing, creating 2 million units. $45 billion for clean water infrastructure, taking lead out of water. Free community college, investments in historic Black colleges, investments in broadband. I'm testing my photographic memory here, but it's all investments, as he's saying, childcare, paid leave, family leave, all of these things as infrastructure. The Republicans, however, are saying that infrastructure is only the roads and bridges, that you shouldn't be concerned about a road or highway coming in and blighting a neighborhood like Greenwood, or any other of these communities. But President Biden wants to invest $15 billion to address that. So at the end of the day, this is the issue that America faces. How do you make the sausage? How do you make the law? Now, the votes aren't there in the Senate. Senator Joe Manchin, my friend from West Virginia, will not accept a deal that isn't bipartisan. The president, however, can use reconciliation to get that 51st vote and pass it through. Is that a good thing for America, or do we want to see continued efforts to have policy that's accepted by both parties? That's my closing monologue today. Only time will tell how American government will proceed, but it does not seem that this president is going to have a unified, bipartisan support for anything that he proposes in the near-term future.
Is Joe Manchin still your friend?
I keep up with him. He's a family friend. I've known him for many years. I know him. I wouldn't say he's my best friend, but he's from a very conservative state. So I will tell you that he cannot get reelected. Which I'm not saying is the right thing, but he wouldn't be able to be reelected.
Or maybe it's a good thing for him not to be reelected. It's a friends like that who needs enemies.
Well, it's Joe Manchin. They're like a dynasty in West Virginia. I think he'll always be, as long as he's got a heart beating, he'll win in West Virginia. His great uncle, A. James Manchin, used to go into offices, and it used to freak my parents out when my dad was a surgeon, and he would pull out his fiddle and sing Country Roads or the Star Spangled Banner. It was old school retail politics. Well, guess what? His uncle went to prison when or $500 million was missing from West Virginia's Treasury's office. And so he was under investigation. And of course, Arch Moore, the former governor of West Virginia, whose daughter, nobody knows this, the daughter of Arch Moore, the former governor of West Virginia, is Shelley Moore Capito. Shelley Moore Capito is a Republican senator from West Virginia who is working with President Biden on the deal. But her father was the first West Virginian to go to prison for bribes.
And also, Sasha, the governor currently is on the hook for personally on the hook for a $700 million loan. But that's going bad. That went bad.
But my final thought, here's the irony, and this is a great way to end the show. We talk about dynasties, the Manchin dynasty, Arch Moore's dynasty, but I was shocked to find out that the rising star in the legislature that they say could become the next Speaker of the House and governor is Moore Capito, the grandson of the late former Governor Arch Moore, and the son of Shelley Moore Capito. Political dynasties, folks. In America, they last forever. And in West Virginia, we've got the Moores. In the United States, have the Kennedys and the Bushes.
Right.
Who knows who's next? The Trumps.
Sasha, West Virginia is a feudal state governed by the Romanovs, basically. Figure it that way.
All right. On that
Yes.
note, we're gonna get on out of here. But we
Yeah.
could talk about even
Okay.
Jesse, because Joe Manchin sounds like Jesse Helms to me. But I'm going to get on out of here on that note, and we're gonna be back next week with some more great editions of World Edition, hosted by Steve Rao. So, like I said, looking forward to seeing him next week as well.
See you at 2:00. Thank you, sir.
All right, 2 o'clock.
Thank you.